In this lesson, we are going to be talking about some key features of rational functions. And the first key feature we're going to talk about is isotopes. And there are going to be different types of isotopes. First, let's just talk about a blanket isotope. First, you need to know a rational function, when you graph it, is going to have a graph that has curves in it. And since it's going to be curving, that means each direction as it curves, it's going to be going on forever and ever. So the curves are going to be approaching either a positive infinity or a negative infinity. So an isotope is going to be a dashed line that the curve is going to follow as it's heading out toward one of those infinities. So the first type of isotope that we're going to focus on today is going to be called a vertical one. So you're going to have a vertical dashed line, and since it's vertical, all vertical lines will always have an equation that looks like x equals a number. So if you look over on the side, we have a picture here, and the picture we have a red vertical dashed line going through the number 3. So that would be x equals 3. To find a vertical isotope, we are going to look at the denominator, and we're going to factor GCF and set it equal to 0 and solve. Now, you still want to factor or GCF the numerator because there might be something that cancels out because you're only going to be doing the vertical isotope for what you have left on the bottom if something does cancel out. And then the second thing that we're going to talk about for key feature is going to be a gap in the graph, which we are going to call a point of discontinuity. So POD for short. And a POD only occurs when you factor or GCF the top and the bottom of the fraction and something does indeed cancel out. And since this is a point, your answer will look like an ordered pair, so x comma y. Not every single question will have something that cancels out, so not every question will have a POD. If you do have a POD, to find the x value of the point, you're going to take what you cancel out and solve it for x. And then to find the y value, you will take the x and plug it back in and solve for y, which we will do this all in an example, and it will make much more sense when you see it in a problem, but that's just a quick run through. So let me erase that. Let's scroll up and start working some of these out in the actual example problems. First, I'm going to start with the vertical isotope. So what I would do is I would try to factor or GCF the entire fraction. So on the first one, I can't do anything with the top because that's just a single term x, so I'm going to leave that alone. But on the bottom, if it's missing the c term, that should be a GCF, so I'm going to take out an x. So that will give me x parentheses x plus 2. Okay, and then you're going to notice, oh, look, I have an x on top, x on bottom, so they cancel. And I'm left with, now here's the tricky part. Everybody's going to be like, oh, I don't have anything on top. That's not the right answer, because even though I canceled out the x, you're still left with its coefficient, which its coefficient is a 1, so you're still left with a 1 on top. And then on the bottom, you have x plus 2. So then for the vertical isotope, so over here, I'm going to use VA for vertical isotope. You're going to take what you have left on the bottom, which is x plus 2. You're going to pretend like you solve that for x. And if I move positive 2 over, I get x equals negative 2. And so that is my equation, x equals negative 2. That's my vertical isotope. Done with that part. Now, for the POD, you have to look at it and say, did I cancel something out? Well, yes, I did. So if I cancel something out, you have a POD. So I would say, yes, I have a POD because something canceled out. So for the POD, it's going to be an ordered pair. You're going to have an X value and a Y value. Okay, to get the X value, you're going to take what you canceled out. And what did we cancel out? Well, that would be the letter X. So you're going to take what you canceled out, which is X, set it equal to 0, and solve it. And this is already solved because it says X equals. So that is already the value for X. Then you get to come up here and put 0 in for X. Boom. Now to find the Y value, you're going to take the answer for X, which is 0, and you're going to go plug it into the equation that you had left. So we had 1 over X plus 2, that's what we had left. And then we're going to plug in the 0 for the X, so I have 1 over 0 plus 2, which would give me 1 over 2, which is 0.5, or if you want to leave it as 1 over 2, that's fine. So the Y value is 0.5 or 1 over 2. And that's your POD done. Okay, so let's try another one. So number 2, I'm going to fast factor the top. So what multiplies for 2 that adds for 3? And I'm going to say, oh, that's 2 and 1. So then I'm going to go X plus 2, X plus 1. On the bottom, it doesn't have a GCF, doesn't have a power 2, so I can't factor it, so I'm going to leave that alone. Does anything cancel out? No. So if nothing cancels out, then there is no POD. Because remember, not every single problem has a POD. So then for the vertical asymptote, you just look at what you have on the bottom. So then I'm going to take X minus 2 and set it equal to 0. And then if I solve that, I move -2 over, it becomes +2. So the vertical asymptote is X equals 2. Done. Okay, third one. The top doesn't have a GCF, can't fast factor it, I can't do difference of squares, I can't do anything with it. So I'm just going to leave the top alone. On the bottom, I can take out an X as a greatest common factor, which gives me X minus 6. Nothing cancels out, so there's no POD. Okay, I notice there are 2 X's on the bottom, so that means there's 2 vertical asymptotes. So then I'm just going to take the first X and set it equal to 0. And then I'm going to take X minus 6 and set it equal to 0. So then my vertical asymptotes are X equals 0 and X equals +6. Done. Okay, next row. On number 4, I can start with taking out an X on the top, which gives me X squared minus 25. And then I can continue to factor that. So I'll come down here. So then I keep my GCF, and then I go X minus 5 and X plus 5. On the bottom, I can fast factor, multiply for 15, that adds for -8, and that's going to give me X minus 5 and X minus 3. Okay, X minus 5s cancel out. Something cancels out, so I have a POD. I will come back to that here in a minute. For the vertical asymptote, I will look at what I have left on the bottom. So for the VA, I would say X minus 3 equals 0. So X equals +3. Okay, so for my POD, okay, what canceled out? Well, x minus 5 canceled out. So if I set that equal to 0, I get x equals positive 5. So that is the x value of my POD. To find the y value, I'm going to look at what I have left, and this is what I had left. I had x parentheses x plus 5 over x minus 3. And now, everywhere I see an x, I am going to plug in 5 because that was my x value of the POD. So now I'm going to go 5 parentheses 5 plus 5 over 5 minus 3. And when I work that out, I get 50 over 2, which is 25. And that is my y value of the POD. Okay, the next one. I can't do anything with x minus 1, so I'm going to leave that alone. On the bottom, I'm going to start by taking out a 3 as my GCF. So I have 3 parentheses x squared minus 1. But then I'm going to continue to keep factoring that. So then I would have 3 parentheses x minus 1 parentheses x plus 1. And then I'm going to notice that x minus 1 cancels out, so this will have a POD, so I'll come back to that here in a minute. For my VA, I'm going to look at what I have left on the bottom, which 3 does not count because it does not have a variable with it, so don't pay any attention to that. So I just have x plus 1 equals 0, so that would be x equals negative 1. And then for my POD, okay, what did I cancel out? I canceled out x minus 1. So I'm going to go solve that, and I get x equals positive 1. So that's the x value of my POD. Now, what did I have left over? Well, if you cancel everything out on the top, then that automatically means you have a 1. And then on the bottom, we had 3 parentheses x plus 1. So now I'm going to go substitute in 1 because that was the x value for my POD. So 1 over 3 parentheses 1 plus 1, which will end up giving me 1 over 6, which you can leave it as 1 over 6, or I would put it as a decimal because later you're going to have to plot these. So that would be 0.2, because I just round to the tenths. Okay, next one. On the top, I can take out an x. So x parentheses x plus 8. On the bottom, I can fast factor what multiplies for negative 8. That adds for positive 7. That would be x plus 8 and x minus 1. And then x plus 8 cancels out, so I will have a POD. So I'll come back to that here in a little bit. So I'm going to do my VA first. And for VA, what I have left on the bottom is x minus 1 equals 0. So if I solve that, I get x equals positive 1. So that's my VA. So my POD is going to be an ordered pair. So I'm going to go to what I canceled out. So I'm going to take x plus 8. Set it equal to 0. When I solve it, I get negative 8. So that is my x value of the POD. So now I go back to my expression, and what did I have left on my expression? I had x over x minus 1. So now plug in -8 for all your x's. So -8 over -8 minus 1. And if I work that out, I get -8 over -9, which as a decimal is about positive 0.9. And that gives me my POD. Okay, a few more left. So on the next one, I would take out an x on the top, which gives me x plus 2. I can't do anything on the bottom, so I leave that. Nothing cancels out on this one, so no POD. And then your VA, you just solve what's on the bottom for x. So x minus 4 equals 0. So x equals positive 4, and that's your VA, and done. Okay, 8. Fast factor the top. What multiplies for 16 that adds for 8? Well, that would be 4 and 4. So x plus 4 and x plus 4. On the bottom, I'm going to start by noticing it has a GCF. So I'm going to take out a 4, which would give me x squared plus 6x plus 8. And then I'm going to be like, ooh, I can fast factor that. So I'm going to keep the top the same. And then I'm going to fast factor the bottom. So multiplies for 8 that adds for 6 would be 4 and 2. So x plus 4, x plus 2, keep your GCF of 4. And then I'm going to be like, oh, look, something cancels out, x plus 4. So I will have a POD. I'll have to come back to that. For my VA, on the bottom, I don't have to pay attention to the 4 because it doesn't have an x. So my VA, I'm just looking at x plus 2 equals 0. So x would equal -2, and that is my VA. Now my POD. Okay, what canceled out? Well, let's see, that was x plus 4. So x plus 4 equals 0. So x equals -4. So that's the x value of my POD. So what did I have left on my fraction? I had x plus 4 over 4 parentheses x plus 2. So now let's go substitute in -4. So -4 plus 4 over 4 times -4 plus 2, which works out to be 0 over -8, which is just 0. So then I have my POD. Okay, last one, yay! All right, can't do anything with the top on 1. Fast factor the bottom. So multiplies for -3, that adds for -2. So that would be x minus 3 and x plus 1. Nothing cancels out, so no POD. For VA, I have 2 x's on the bottom, so I'm going to have to solve each one. So set each one equal to 0. So for VA, I would have x equals +3 and x equals -1. And we are done.